Jeffrey Dunham here with Custom PCs and Repair. So if you guys are watching this video, it's because, just like me, I had a situation. I purchased a brand new Dell Inspiron laptop from a client of mine, but unfortunately it was BIOS locked. Now, I called Dell, and essentially they gave me, one option, and that was no matter what, even though I own an IT business, I didn't have special privileges, so if I paid $229 for a warranty, they would give me the master BIOS unlock password, which is something that is proprietary to Dell and a couple of other companies, but primarily Dell. So instead of being able to, like remove the CMOS battery and remove the primary battery of the laptop and then just set it aside for like a week, which I did try, this is a scenario where no matter what you do, unless you're shorting out a piece on the motherboard, which is dangerous, so do not do it. You're pretty much stuck, at least most of the people think they're stuck either paying the warranty or they don't know what else they're going to do because they're locked out of their system. So there's a way around this, and I'm doing this as a tutorial for beginners, though it can be used for advanced, though I apologize because I'm explaining every last little step as I go along. It's going to actually be a two-part video at least. I definitely hope it's not going to be three-part because it's just one laptop. But essentially, what I'm trying to get at, guys, is you can get rid of any BIOS unlock by replacing the motherboard, okay? So you don't have to spend $100 on a piece of software. You don't have to spend $230 on a stupid friggin' Dell warranty. I went online to eBay, bought a brand new motherboard through a reputable company. It's a legitimate company that has new motherboards, never been used, only tested, OEM from Dell. So they sold it to me for $49.99, free shipping, and so I'm just transferring it. I transferred it straight over to a laptop. So this video is a step-by-step instructional tutorial of how exactly to do that. Is it specifically for beginners? Technically, no. I mean, if you have no clue what you're doing, then you still may want to shy away. But I made it as simple as possible, which is why this video takes so long. So I hope you guys enjoy. And again, if you have a Dell laptop and you're locked out of your BIOS, this is, for the most part, a sure way to handle this. The only way that it's not is if your hard drive is also locked from the BIOS menu. And if that's the case, then you're also going to have to replace your hard drive, which I ended up doing anyways. So, yeah, like I said, this is just going to bypass the whole scenario, and this is the step-by-step, very detailed instructional video. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Alright guys, so this is the best aerial view that I can give you. So you are going to need, obviously, a couple of tools. You are going to need a multi-purpose toolkit. Usually you only need just the one screw size, but it is best to have an entire toolkit just in case. I actually picked this guy up. It's the Tough Durasteel 55-piece set at Walmart. It was like $5, so definitely cheap to get the piece, the tools for it. But I actually opted out, so I have a bad wrist, so I actually ended up getting a cordless precision screwdriver. It's really cheap. It's not the best. But again, it was only like $10. Also at Walmart, sadly enough. I tried to do all my shopping online, but it's actually got a built-in light, LED light, so you can see there, forward, backward, so it makes things a lot easier. So that's one of the tools that you're definitely going to need. The next piece of equipment that you're going to need, you may need some needle nose pliers. This is going to help remove some of the hidden wires. You don't always need them, but it's a good idea to have them around just in case. Obviously, you're going to need, the replacement motherboard that I was telling you about. Let me actually go ahead and unwrap it here. It's still in its static cling wrap. I did double check to make sure everything was okay. Serial numbers are still proper, all that fun stuff. But outside of the motherboard, the laptop, obviously. I don't want to balance that too crazily there. And then thermal paste. So since we're transferring the CPU, we're going to have to replace the thermal paste as well. I definitely recommend the Arctic Silver 5 compound. This is a really, really big tube. It's like $13 for this whole tube, but it's good for multiple computers. It's one of the highest rated, in fact, as far as I know, it is the highest rated thermal compound there is. It definitely helps with thermal dissipation. It actually So thermal paste is specifically for heat transfer. It goes straight from the CPU up into your actual your heat sink or your liquid cooling unit or whatever you've got going on for your computer. And it's what transfers the heat for you, or at least assists in transferring the heat. So anyways, I'm using the Arctic Silver 5. This is a brand new tube. Bought it on Amazon, like I said, for like 13 bucks for this, and it's the 12 gram tube, so it's a lot. Alright, so let's get straight into it. I apologize for the overhead view. As I said, I'm going to be getting some new cameras pretty soon, and that'll definitely help. So here's the laptop. It is the Dell Inspiron, as I was telling you. Screen is still good. Just replaced the battery, the charger, the hard drive, the RAM. The only thing I haven't replaced, essentially, especially after this, the backplate has a couple of minor buffs and scuffs, which is why I'm selling it as a used, refurbished. Not a fully certified refurbished, unfortunately. If I wanted to spend the extra 10 bucks or 15 bucks, I can actually get a replacement back, and I might even actually go ahead and do that. It just depends. So, go ahead and take your laptop, flip it over. You will have the battery still attached more than likely, so the first thing we want to do is definitely remove that battery. If your battery is still connected, there's a very high chance that you will fry components, and we do not want that whatsoever. So underneath this plate here, you'll actually find the hard drive, the RAM, and your Wi-Fi card, as well as your CMOS battery, your clock battery. So we're going to go ahead and actually start in that section right there. Okay, as you see my kit here, my handy dandy battery operated screwdriver, and we're just going to go ahead and remove the 3 screws here in the front. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the RAM modules. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, but if you want to know more about that, I'll put some links in the description to a couple of reputable people that are very good at describing, explaining what this is. So there's 2 tabs here on either side of the RAM stick, and you're going to want to just pull those apart. As a quick disclaimer, you definitely want to make sure that you wash your hands first. I use just a basic antimicrobial soap. Word of advice, always use an anti-static strap. Okay, so anyways, this wrist strap is just to make sure that any static buildup that you have is being discharged somewhere else. So and I actually grounded it. You want to ground it away from the computer as best as you can. So I actually have it grounded to my other computer desk, which is made out of metal, and it's grounded down to the floor. So that way, if I have any static buildup whatsoever, it doesn't go to the motherboard or any of the components, and instead goes through the static strap and grounded out to the actual computer desk. Another precaution that I actually normally take, and I did today as well, is I actually take, I use 99% isopropyl alcohol to clean a majority of the components. It's non-conductive, it's a high concentration, so there's almost no water in it. 99%, literally 1% is residual liquids, including water. So it's the highest quality you're going to get. There's no such thing as 100% as far as I know. But I actually rinse my hands in that as well before I get started. Why? Because it actually gets rid of a lot of the oils that my body creates. I don't know if I do this out of paranoia or if it really is a good idea, but I do know that oils, conducting, kind of old school that way. You don't touch a motherboard the best you can. But anyways, moving on. So after you remove the 2 pins here, you are going to want to go ahead and remove the 2 RAM sticks. You're going to want to put them aside, set them aside onto something that is also non-conductive. In my case, I actually have a couple of boxes here, but I'm also going to actually have a station over my computer that I'm just setting them aside for. All these parts, you want to make sure that you put them aside and you keep them all together. If you don't, you may end up losing something, and you don't want to lose a part that's going to be essential. So, second RAM stick was almost the exact same. Again, it's 2 pieces on the other side, but it's slightly below. Once you pull them aside, it pops up a little bit, and go ahead and just pull out and slide it up and out of the way. So now comes the next part. The back tray that was covering the RAM sticks and the hard drive, as well as the Wi-Fi card. That actually has the screws built in, so you can't lose them. But the last piece that that I definitely recommend is going to be a small magnetic parts tray. You don't want to lose all your screws by any means. It's a very, very bad thing if you do. Essentially, when you take apart a card and you put it back together, you don't want to have extra pieces and you don't want to be missing pieces, right? So, anyways, the next part is going to be the magnetic parts tray, because from this point forward, all the screws that we remove are going to be not attached permanently. So the next part that we're going to go ahead and remove is going to be the 1 terabyte hard drive. There's one screw here. Hopefully you guys can see this just fine. Just in case, I'll actually put it right under the camera. Again, I'm testing with all this new stuff. So there's one screw right here. You sometimes hold two, but ultimately it wasn't necessary for this build, so I just put the one screw to hold it in place. Remove that screw. Set the screw into the parts tray. Now you are going to want to somewhat organize these screws as well as you go, so that way you don't get confused. At the very, this is a whiteboard that you guys can see here, and if I have certain screws that I don't know where they go, I'll actually make a small note up here on the whiteboard, so that way I know exactly what's going on. On top of that, it hides all the junk that you guys don't see, which is definitely a bonus in my case. So, all we had to do to remove the hard drive, once it was in here, okay, again, I'll show you guys from the, directly underneath here. Once I remove the screw from here, there's a small black tab. Go ahead and just pull on that black tab, and the hard drive will move. Okay, you may have all 4 screws, and if that's the case, remove the 4 screws. 2 screws, 3 screws, doesn't matter. However many screws, there's a maximum of 4 here that are attached into this little piece of, gray tin that's actually called hard drive caddy. And once you pull up on that black tab there, you'll notice that it'll pop out of this little piece here. So go ahead and remove the hard drive. Again, set it aside next to the other components that you already have set aside, for safekeeping for later. The next component that I'm going to go ahead and remove is going to be the Wi-Fi card. Now this is an actual upgraded wireless adapter card. The one that it came with was getting old, it was getting a little corroded. So I decided to go ahead and give it a little bit of a boost. So I went with the Intel Centrino wireless and wireless card. Not exactly a heck of a boost, but a new card with new drivers tends to work a little bit better than an old card with even the most modern. So removing these pins can be a pain, and you definitely don't want to bend them. This is where those pliers may come in handy. You can pull them out with just your fingers, as long as you're careful not to bend the pins. Because if you bend the pins, or even worse, break off one of these very, very, very small connectors inside, then you're either going to have to replace your wireless card, or you may even have to replace these antennae connectors, which is not fun. Now that we have them disconnected, go ahead and reroute the wires. Pull them back as far as you need to. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and grab this with that. There we go. The reason we're removing this is actually connected to the screen. Once it's disconnected from here, it feeds back through the base of the motherboard and attaches at the screen, so we're going to actually have to get rid of these wires too. So that, like I said, you want to remove them as far as you can. Now that the wires are disconnected, let's go ahead and remove that CMOS battery now. Now I'm not going to use the electric screwdriver for that, because all you need is a nice flat blade. I'll go ahead and take my other micro screwdriver, the $5 one from Walmart. Hilarious, but it works great. Okay, you'll actually see there's not a whole lot of places where you can push on or anything, with this battery, but there is actually a small slot right here. And you can go ahead and just fit the blade of the screwdriver right underneath there. Press up just with a little bit of force, pressing both simultaneously to this way towards this end of the laptop, and pulling up. And it should pry out, not too much difficulty. Now, if it's turning, if you're prying and you're seeing plastic or metal move a lot, definitely stop. Make sure that you've got the blade of the screwdriver in an appropriate place, because if you don't, you could actually sever a piece of the motherboard. We are replacing the motherboard, but it's still a horrible habit to try to get into. So make sure that even though we're replacing the motherboard, handle it with the same amount of care as if it were the new motherboard. Otherwise, you're going to establish bad habits. Even if this is only a one-time fix, you never know if it's going to turn into a second, a third, or a fourth, etc. So now that the battery's removed, go ahead and put it back with the other devices that you have set aside. Next, we're going to actually go ahead and remove the wireless card itself. There's only one screw here. It's in the top right hand corner. So we're going to go ahead and just remove the screw from that. Okay, and you'll notice that it's kind of like a spring, so it actually comes up here. Now the screw is still inside here. Sometimes the screw comes out, sometimes it doesn't. But regardless, now that this wireless card is facing partially up, you can go ahead and just grab it with 2 fingers and just pull straight out. And it'll come out with no issue. Take the screw, take it, make sure you remove it because you don't want to set this aside with the screw still attached. And put the screw into your parts tray. Then you can take your card and set it aside as well. Okay, so now we have all of the easy to get to components removed and out of the way. The next thing we're going to do is you'll actually see that there are multiple screws all along the backside of this motherboard here. Normally, to get to some of the components, you actually do not need to remove all of the screws. Since we are doing an entire motherboard replacement though, I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the screws, and if you have the same model or whatever, you're going to want to do the same. All the screws that you see here, make sure you remove. Now there's only, I believe there's 2 different size screws here, so make sure you're paying close attention. If you have a different size screw, set it aside, take a note of where that screw goes. Now, I go out of my way to, once I remove one screw, tip the laptop, set the screw aside, move on to the next screw. Some people will undo them all at once because they have a workstation that, is big enough, depth-wise, where you're not going to lose a single screw. There's no big deal. Some people are so crazy with their computer parts that they have practically a clean room, which I would love to have. But I have just a small business right out of my personal office in my house at the moment because I don't want to pay rent for a building. So I just have a small computer desk, so I'm going to make sure that I remove every single screw one by one. This screw only holds the DVD drive in. That's all it's for. So it's okay to go ahead and remove the screw for it. This one actually pokes out enough where I can actually grab it, which is unique. And then to remove the DVD drive, all you have to do is you'll notice a seam around where the DVD drive normally pops out. You do want to make sure that you can leave it open, but I don't advise that because there's plenty enough space to get your thumbnails in there to pull the DVD drive out. So if you're going to go ahead and do that, then since we have the screw removed, all you do is put your the thumbnails right where that crack is here, and then you're just going to slowly pry, not too much force, but go ahead and pry the DVD drive out. It should come out with no problem. Okay. Go ahead and set that aside with the rest of your components. So near the back of the battery compartment, you'll notice that these screws are actually quite a bit smaller. They need to be smaller so that way they can leave enough space for the battery, since it rides right in and there's almost no space whatsoever between the screen, the keyboard cover, and the actual where the battery connectors are. This is where the battery and the motherboard actually meet, and there's nothing but space here. Right here literally is just the screen. So I mean there's just a very thin piece of plastic there, so that's why the screws have to be so thin and so small. So don't press too hard no matter what you're doing with these screws. And if the screws are giving you too much resistance, again, you need to make sure that you either A, go talk to a professional, or B, make sure that you're actually using the appropriate tools. And even a second opinion, even if it's someone that's not completely tech savvy, they can look at the screws, and generally a second brain will help you figure out how to get it out. Do not use stuff like WD-40. That is not going to be good to get screws out. So you have to be very selective about the type of things that you use to try to remove screws. And yes, believe it or not, I have had screws that were completely rusted inside of a base. Thankfully, definitely not with this computer. The next part I have to show you guys is when we pulled out the DVD drive, you'll actually notice 3 small screws along the side. This is also the same kind of a scenario as with the battery compartment. It's very thin here, just holding 2 pieces together, so that way the DVD drive hides snugly inside and there's no exposed metal or other parts of the motherboard. They're the same size as the battery compartment screws, but just in case I also still like to keep them held separately. I didn't hold those other 2 separately, did I? There's one. There's the second one. Okay. Whew. Thought I pulled a stupid. There we go. Don't want to go against my own advice if I'm giving you guys a tutorial video, do I? Okay. So now that we have all the screws removed, let's go ahead and take a double check. Actually, I did leave one left. Double check, make sure that's the only screw I have left. Make sure you guys do this. You'd be surprised how often you accidentally forget a screw, or, you didn't realize that there was a screw underneath something else, whatever. And then the next step is going to be, we're going to be prying the keyboard out and then prying the 2 pieces apart. And if you don't have all the screws out, you're going to end up damaging your laptop really badly. So make sure, again, you go through all the ports, all the pieces here, and make sure that all of these screws are out. Looks pretty good. So now we're going to go ahead and take the laptop, flip it back over. Those wires, don't worry about them getting pinched or anything. As long as they're underneath the bay, there's not going to be any damage done to them. Go ahead and lift your screen, exposing the keyboard. So this is actually where the battery sits. Like I said, where those 2 small screws are, it's very, very thin, and you can actually see movement here because of how thin it really is. Shows you how delicate laptops really are when you put them together. So there's not a whole lot of advice about removing keyboards. There are some tools that you can actually get, but if you're only doing this once or twice, I actually don't have the tools, though I do have some coming. I actually just use a flathead screwdriver. As long as you're not trying to really screw your laptop up, jarring it around, you're not going to hurt it too bad. But you just have to be very careful. You'll notice that there are some small pins. Looks like there are 4 of them on this keyboard, which is fairly typical. And there's just a very small divot. Where you can press in the pins. So I forgot about this. So actually in this Dell, the keyboard cover, the keyboard itself is still screwed into the motherboard. The only way you can get rid of that is by lifting this front here. So we'll go ahead, and what I did here was where the DVD drive connects, I actually just pressed to remove a portion of that. Now, the actual piece that's held in place is this black piece here, as you see turned around. You do not want to completely remove the chrome piece. As I said, the keyboard is still attached to either a metal insert or attached to the motherboard itself. So if you just go wrenching on this piece where it's kind of a chrome material here, you're going to end up harming your computer. So I did press up here just to get part of it loose, but then I'm actually going to start pressing on the plastic itself. As you see here, it is going to snap a little bit. As long as you're being careful, you shouldn't damage anything. But we're just going to excuse me, go around in a circle, slowly prying this up. There it goes. It does make a loud snapping sound. If you're prying really hard, you either missed a screw or you have a piece of your plastic stuck. Go back, turn your computer over if that's the case. Make sure once again that the screws are all removed. You can't be too careful with this, guys. I mean, if you end up doing this and you snap out your own keyboard or whatever, I'm not going to pay for anything. This is a basic tutorial for you guys, and I don't want you guys to go home with a sad look on your face because you accidentally destroyed your own laptop. So when we pulled this up, I didn't immediately pull this aside because there's actually a ribbon cable here. This is a laptop ribbon cable. It's not the same as the old IDE style, though it, in a sense, kind of is the same thing. You'll actually notice here that there's a small white piece of material, little piece of plastic with a little black tab. That black tab is what's actually holding that ribbon cable in place. So what we've got to do now is just take your fingernail, or if you don't, or you're not comfortable enough with it, you can take the flat edge of a screwdriver, and we're going to put that underneath that black tab and lift that black tab up, and it should pop right out. Once that's removed, then we'll actually be able to take the actual keyboard bevel off. That has your power button, by the way. So if you hurt this cable, you are not turning your computer back on. So now that that's removed, see here are the two screw places that I was telling you about. The one on the back with the battery, and there's actually a third one over here in the far right corner. So if you didn't have those screws removed, you could have just destroyed this piece of plastic, which I think even this stupid thing goes for like $30 online or more. So let's not waste money, right? Go ahead and set that aside with everything else. So now you'll notice that we have some of it exposed, but we still have screws. We have 3 primary screws for the keyboard, and those are actually embedded straight into a metal and plastic plate underneath. So we're going to go ahead and remove those now. Three screws are completely separated. We're going to go ahead and pull back on the keyboard. Okay. Just slightly till it pops just like that. We're going to slide it forward, but we're not going to pull completely up. Here are some more tabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 of them here. That's what holds it in place other than the 4 screws to make sure that your keyboard isn't moving around. We definitely don't want a desktop keyboard style that's moving around in the same way. We want it firmly in place, so that's why I have those tabs. Now, as I said, we're not going to pull directly hard up because if you look underneath, you'll see the cable there. In fact, you guys can see it while I technically can't, minus except for the reflection on the screen, until I pull it all the way back. Here's another ribbon cable, and instead of it being white with a black tab, we actually have black with a white tab. Same exact concept though. If you're comfortable doing it with your thumbnail, go for it. If you're not, go ahead and use the flat blade of the screwdriver. We're just going to, again, pry this piece up, and the ribbon cable falls right off, and your keyboard is completely removed. Go ahead and take your keyboard and set it aside. Okay, now remember when I was saying don't be prying up on the chrome because it's still attached? This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. If you look here, there are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more screws holding the entire assembly in place. If I would have just kept prying on that chrome all the way around, I would have actually shattered the plastic, maybe harmed the motherboard, or even worse, just disabled the entire computer altogether. I wouldn't have been able to resell this. You wouldn't be able to reuse it if it's a personal computer scenario. So it's best to make sure that you're taking this as effectively, as safely as possible. So now that we have the screws exposed, my magnetic parts tray is running out of space to separate everything. I think I got enough of those, though I'm probably going to have to get another one. Go ahead and remove these screws as well.
Alright guys, so that was only part one of the two-part series. At least I'm hoping to keep it down to just 2 parts. There's a lot of video editing going on. I know it's extremely detailed. So I'll get that second part of the video uploaded ASAP. For now though, that's the first part. The second one should follow either tonight or tomorrow, depending on when you guys look at this. Hopefully it's not, very far down the future. So thanks a lot. Please like, subscribe, and definitely check out my website as well. That's custompcsandrepair.weebly.com. You'll see a link down in the description below. As well as just hit that like button, guys. I can't do this, very easily on my own. I'm going to try to do what I can to please the audience. I'm also going to be doing a bunch of Let's Play concept videos and some unboxings and things like that. It's pretty much all up to you guys. So there's going to be a little bit of here, a little bit of there, tutorials. I'm actually going to be also doing my custom router using MikroTik router, which is a PC with a 3-core processor, 4 gigs of RAM, 750 gig hard drive, 4-port Ethernet port, and 2 wireless NICs, and it's all liquid cooled. Okay, so this is like extreme, way over the top kind of a router, but this is something that cost me less than $300, and I'm getting a router that's more powerful than a $1,200 router that you can buy, at Best Buy or whatever. So hopefully you guys will watch that video too. Again, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe if you guys would, please, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.